when it comes to adjustability options, your M1 driver is pretty much the cream of the crop. With just a simple adjustment wrench like this, you can raise or lower the loft, you can give this driver a draw or a fade bias, and you can change other things like the trajectory and the spin the driver puts on the golf ball. So what we're going to do is break it all down very simply and show you how to set up your M1 driver to best suit your golf game. Now, first of all, let's look at the opening and locking mechanisms of the screws here. There are 3 screws in the M1, and to open any screw you simply place the wrench into the top of the screw and you turn it anti-clockwise to open it. To tighten then you turn it clockwise. And the screws that secure these weights and the hosel in place, when they're fully closed, they make an audible click sound to let you know that they're secured in place, it's safe to play with them, and to prevent over tightening. So it's something like this. There you go. Now let's look at each screw individually. So let's go ahead first of all and open the shaft screw and remove the shaft. Takes a couple of twists. I hold it in my thumb and forefinger. The head will just ease off the shaft, and when you do so, you'll notice numbers and settings on the tip of the shaft, and these indicate some of the different loft, lie and face angles you can choose. The TaylorMade use what's classed as a 4-degree tip adapter, and at the time of manufacture and assembly, the shaft will be assembled like this. Just like that. So you'll see standard loft or STD loft being lined up with this little arrow here. So this being a 9.5 degree driver, when this standard loft is lined up with the arrow, the loft is 9.5 degrees. The lie angle is a standard 56 degrees and the face angle is square. Now there are actually 12 different notches or movements on this little sleeve, and each one increases or decreases the loft by a half or 3/4 of a degree. So what would happen, for instance, if we reduce the loft? Well, if we rotate all the way from standard around to this lower position and we reattach the shaft at this lower position like that, that effectively reduces the loft of this 9.5 degree driver to 7.5 degrees. And at this setting, the face is also now going to be 4 degrees more open than normal, and the lie angle a little bit more upright at 58 degrees. So this is really going to put a fade bias or left to right trajectory on your golf shots. Now at this setting, it will also reduce the amount of spin the driver imparts on the golf ball by about 400 RPM. Now conversely, if we rotate from the standard loft all the way to this higher setting here and reattached the shaft and got the arrows lined up at the higher setting, this increases the loft of this 9.5 degree driver to 11.5 degrees. Now in doing this, you're going to shut the face 4 degrees more closed than normal. Again, the lie angle is going to be a little bit more upright at 58 degrees, and this time you add about 400 RPM of spin to your shots. So this will really put a draw bias or right to left bias on your driver. Now you don't have to adjust all the way to the lower or higher settings. You can adjust incrementally along these little notches in between here and reattach the head to make the changes more subtly or more gradually. Now, if you start at standard loft and you spin the tip adapter through 180 degrees, you'll get to a setting here which says UPRT or upright lie. You can go ahead and attach the driver at that upright lie setting, and at this position the loft is back at standard, that's 9.5 degrees, but now the club sits 4 degrees more upright and the lie angle has changed from 56 degrees now to its maximum 60 degrees. So you'll find this sets the driver up for a draw, but it's a lot more subtle than in the higher setting that I talked about earlier. Now, again, from this upright lie setting, you can adjust lower or higher incrementally along those notches to make subtle changes. Now, as well as the loft sleeve adjustment options, you also have 2 sliding weights in the head. Let me just go ahead and open the 2 of those. This is what's called the T-track in the head. Now the standard or default position for these weights is at this little red N or neutral position. So for the front weight it's there, you can see in the second weight it is there. And again, these weights are tightened with the adjustment tool that same adjustment tool that we used earlier, and again there's an audible click. Now this rail, first of all, behind the head that runs parallel to the face contains the weight again, which can be loosened and moved all the way across the rail into the heel or toe. If we move the weight all the way towards the heel to where it says draw here and tightened up the screw here at the furthest most point, this will work to put a right to left or draw bias on your shots. If we move the weight all the way to the toe here where it says fade and secure the weight in position there, this will have the opposite effect and work to put a fade bias or left to right bias on your shots. So let's go ahead and just secure that back again in a neutral position. And then we have one more weight in the head, and that's this red screw here. And this can move to a low or high position. If we move it forward all the way into the low position, what this does is shift the center of gravity forward in the head. This will produce shots that come off the face a little bit lower with a little bit less spin. You'll often find better players who strike the ball very consistently out of the center of the driver. They'll choose this setting as it gives them a few extra yards. Now if you move this red weight all the way to the high position, marked high here at the back, this moves the center of gravity as far back as possible, and this will result in more spin being put on the ball in the strike. It will produce a slightly higher ball flight, and this will make the driver as forgiving as possible. And remember again, you can move these weights anywhere along these tracks little by little to make the changes a lot more subtly and more gradually. So that is how to adjust your M1 driver. It really is a remarkable piece of engineering, and it is worth your while having a play with the different settings to find which one suits you best. You never know, it could correct your hook, it could fix your slice, or you could find precious extra yards off the tee. It's very important to remember that you can adjust your driver at any time on the range, before or after a round, but just not during a competitive round. From me for now, it's Donal, out.